The story begins with Yuma getting rejected at a job interview. On his way back, he notices a news broadcast about dungeons, reminding him of how they first appeared 10 years ago. Since then, the world has adapted to these dungeons and has started to cash in the goods obtained from them. At first, Yuma wanted to become a dungeon conqueror as well, but after failing multiple times, he gave up. Nonetheless, he is on his way to the job interview at McDonald's when suddenly, the ground beneath him disappears, causing him to fall underground. Realizing that this must be a dungeon, Yuma starts to wonder if he's dead meat. Knowing that he'll starve to death if he doesn't find a way out, Yuma decides to move deeper into the dungeon. Ultimately, he comes across a room where a skill book is present. Apparently, these books grant powers to those who read them, and the power that is granted to Yuma is summoning magic. With that, he tries out his new power and ends up summoning a hot mommy all for himself. She believes that Yuma must have talent, considering he was chosen to be her master, and questions if he has been training at this place. Seeing the confused look on his face, the girl realizes that this is actually the book room. After Yuma explains everything that happened, the girl mentions how he's not an ordinary human being. Moreover, she introduces herself as Snow White, and Yuma asks her about the stuff she can do. To start things off, Snow begins getting a little too close to Yuma's face, which the Gunner doesn't seem to mind. But to his disappointment, she just touches her forehead with his, allowing her to read his memories. Nonetheless, Yuma lets her know that he is unable to fight, and when Snow mentions that humans are pretty fragile, Yuma argues by saying that she isn't carrying any weapons. She informs him that fighting style doesn't require relying on weapons. Anyway, as they continue making their way forward, Snow uses her abilities and freezes a goblin to its demise. Seeing this makes Yuma realize that Snow is a spirit, and informs her that those who conquer dungeons are revered as heroes in this world. However, he gets interrupted mid-speech when she comments on how choosing this path was a mistake. When Yuma asks what she means, Snow points at the dungeon boss right in front of them. Furthermore, she tells him that they don't stand a chance against the boss, and the way back is also blocked. Having no other choice, she decides to buy him some time so Yuma can escape and starts by blocking the boss's attacks. But to her surprise, Yuma ends up distracting the boss monster and gets hit by one of the attacks. Soon after, he wakes up in a room and finds Snow on top of him, who somehow managed to heal him. Luckily, they are currently in a sanctuary where monsters can't approach. Additionally, she informs him that there is a way for them to survive, and that is for them to form a true contract, which will allow her to use her full powers. But for that, he will have to inject his essence into her. Realizing what she means, Yuma freaks out, and when Snow wonders how they should get started, Yuma asks her to let him grab a melon or two, and to his shock, she complies with his request. With that, she lies on the ground with her top on display, and after getting on top of her, Yuma begins kissing her, which eventually leads to him plugging his switch to her socket. Once they are done, the contract is completed, and the only thing left to do is to defeat the boss and head back home. Concerned, Yuma asks if she's sure they can really win and gets told by Snow that he'll understand when he sees it. Afterward, they get out of the sanctuary, and with just a single attack, Snow manages to freeze the boss monster against whom they were struggling earlier. Seeing her fight makes Yuma realize that this is the true power of his contracted spirit, which he finds to be really incredible and beautiful. Meanwhile, Snow reveals another one of her attacks, and after telling the boss monster to go to sleep, she attacks it with the attack, putting an end to the monster for good. Yuma, who experienced this all, compliments Snow for being awesome and gets told by her that if she were serious, causing an ice age in just a week would be no big deal for her. After hearing this, he makes up his mind not to make her angry anytime in the future. Eventually, they are able to get out of the dungeon, and when Snow asks about his plan moving forward, Yuma suggests going back to his house for now. However, the thoughts of them living in his tiny one-bedroom apartment enter his mind along with all the other naughty stuff. But before that, she decides to contact the Dungeon Administration Bureau, which is a private company responsible for managing every dungeon present in Japan. While it's not compulsory, it's an unspoken rule that if one finds a dungeon, it's their job to report it. Noticing that huge building, Snow asks about which floor the bureau is on and gets told that they own the entire building. This makes her figure that they must be making a ton of bread. On the other hand, Yuma starts to believe that they might not trust someone who has not made an appointment, and to solve this, an idea comes to Snow's mind. With that being said, she shows them the giant magical core they obtained after defeating the boss monster, which shocks the girls present at the reception. Turns out this magical core is obtained after a monster is defeated and is generally used as an energy source. Nonetheless, Snow explains that they got this after conquering a dungeon and asks them to take her to the director. Once in the waiting room, Snow questions about the extent to which this administration is involved in conquering dungeons. After informing her that it's first class in Japan, Yuma wonders if there's a reason she's so passionate about conquering dungeons. When Snow doesn't give him a clear answer, Yuma gets silent, which makes Snow wonder why he is not asking for the details. Yuma lets her know that it's obvious she must have a reason not to talk about it. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by a man with a joke of a mustache who introduces himself as Yanagita, the director of the bureau. Realizing that he's a former member of the first exploration party, Yuma gets pumped and nervously introduces himself to the director. However, before Yanagita even gets the chance to speak, Snow lets him know that she will freeze the entire building to uncover the secrets he's keeping. Confused, Yanagita questions what she's talking about when, unexpectedly, a hottie appears right behind the two of them, talking about how that would be a problem. After getting no reaction, she apologizes for the joke, saying that she couldn't help but intervene after finding out about the interesting duo who had come. Annoyed, Snow mocks her sense of humor, to which the girl replies by apologizing, reassuring Snow that she wouldn't do anything that brings harm to the company. Yanagita then introduces the girl as Mina, the president of the Dungeon Administration Bureau. Being the president, she was the first person in Japan to conquer a dungeon. Hearing this, Snow also apologizes for her rude attitude and asks them to accept the magical core as an apology. Curious, Yanagita questions about where she found it and gets informed by Snow that they obtained it after conquering the dungeon that emerged some time ago. When Yanagita asks if she can give them the magical core, Snow agrees, but adds that she has some conditions. The first is that they will provide them with a spacious home with no surveillance. When Yanagita asks what would happen if he were to assign surveillance, Snow lets him know that there won't be any guarantee of his life then. Nonetheless, she continues and mentions the second condition, which is to hire Yuma as an explorer. Puzzled, Yanagita asks why she wants to get him hired instead of herself. As from Snow, he can feel a very powerful magical energy, while from Yuma, all he senses is pure lustfulness. Having no other choice, Snow lets him know that she is a spirit that Yuma summoned, but these are things that humans don't yet fully understand. This makes Yanagita believe that while Snow possesses magic, Yuma doesn't seem to have any, but Mina disagrees. She then mentions how she can sense an extraordinary potential from him and passes a smile to Yuma, causing the desperate loner to blush. Furthermore, Yanagita is advised by Mina to expand his range of perception, to which he agrees and decides to give it another go. However, this time, he also senses an insane amount of energy coming out of Yuma and is freaked out by it. At this point, Yanagita is lost for words, making Mina laugh and question what he is going to do now. Ultimately, he bows down and apologizes to Yuma for making a mistake in his perception. Moreover, he asks them to wait for some time until he reaches a conclusion. Snow gets up, allowing him the time, but before leaving, she questions the benefits the two of them will receive, as it's more than the strength they bring. Yanagita promises to keep this in his mind, and with that, the two of them leave. Once they are outside, Snow compliments it for being an excellent organization, one that could be the key to future dungeon conquests. Curious, Yuma asks why she didn't take a friendlier stance, as it could have been better, to which Snow replies by saying that they need to maintain a distance that keeps them neither enemies nor allies. Additionally, she didn't like the fact that they underestimated them. In a joking manner, Yuma wonders if she said all those things for his sake. This causes Snow to get embarrassed and tell Yuma that if they underestimate her master, that means they underestimate her too, which is why she said that. Nonetheless, he thanks her for everything and gets asked by Snow if he knows any good buyers for the magical core, because she wishes to establish a distribution network for the future. After thinking about it, Yuma suggests selling it online and decides to ask a friend of his who is pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. With that being said, he gives his friend a call and lets them know that he's on his way back home. To Yuma's surprise, as soon as he returns home, he witnesses the friend he was talking to waiting for him outside his house. Soon after, the three of them find themselves sitting in front of each other. Yuma introduces his friend Chika to Snow, who makes sure to apologize for the intrusion. Yuma then informs Chika that the girl in front of her is Snow, a spirit he met in the dungeon. Noticing the awkwardness between the two girls, Yuma begins to wonder if this is turning into a hassle and asks Chika if she is hungry. But instead of replying to Yuma, Chika calls Snow out, saying that it's hard for her to believe that Snow is a spirit and questions if this is one of Yuma's delusions. Having no other choice, Snow freezes a cup sitting in front of her and asks if this is enough proof for her. After seeing this, Chika rules out the possibility of it being Yuma's delusion. Furthermore, Snow asks Chika just to call her Snow instead of Snow White, deciding to call Chika by her first name as well. With that, the two of them shake hands on this, and simultaneously the pizza Yuma ordered arrives as well. While they treat themselves to some pizza, Chika is informed about the work they want her to do, including selling the magical cores. Curious, Snow asks if Chika is an expert on this stuff, to which Yuma agrees. He further says that she's skilled in web design, programming, and even hacking. Apparently, Yuma has already planned things out and suggests promoting the magical cores with videos. Given Snow's brutal face card, Chika believes that their videos can easily hit around 5 million subscribers in a week. When Yuma finds it hard to believe, Chika mentions that if they target an international audience and add English subtitles, they can even triple that figure easily. Being the loser he is, Yuma admits that his English is pretty terrible, but Chika reassures him that something like English is very easy for her. Yuma finds this very impressive, which confuses Snow, who questions if what she's saying is really that impressive. Yuma replies by telling her that, just from the revenue alone, one can live off it for a lifetime, just by selling magical cores. Hearing this makes Snow wonder if all videos can make that much money, but gets told by Yuma that it's not how it usually works. Overjoyed, Snow starts to believe that she must be unique, and while she's in her own world, Chika begins brainstorming and suggests that Yuma start his own business. However, Yuma finds this idea absurd and says how can a guy who was even rejected from McDonald's start his own business? Chika lets him know that she's serious about it and informs Yuma that a company has more credibility than an individual when big money is involved. Even Snow starts advising Yuma to do it, and ultimately he agrees. With that being said, Chika decides to handle all the technical stuff and tells Yuma that he will be the company president while she and Snow will be the employees. Seeing the surprised look on Yuma's face, Snow lets him know that she can't take that role, and if someone were to do that, it has to be him. Once everything is decided, Chika congratulates Yuma on becoming the president. Later that night, Yuma is walking Chika back to her house, holding an umbrella over her head since it's raining. He starts to discuss her payment for the help and gets told by Chika that anything is fine, as she's not hurting for money. However, Yuma argues that even between friends, money matters need to be handled properly. This brings a smile to her face, and Yuma wonders if all of his earnings from the videos would be enough, but Chika refuses to take that much. Yuma then suggests giving her 90 or 80%, but Chika still refuses. In the end, he offers her half the pay, saying that this will be his final offer. After it's settled, Yuma asks if he should handle the paperwork because he feels bad for leaving it all to her. But to his surprise, Chika mentions that she doesn't mind looking after him, making him wonder if she wants to be his stepmom or something. Chika then comments on how his shoulder must be getting wet, and even though he disagrees, she still hugs his arm to avoid it, saying that it would be a problem if he catches a cold. Nonetheless, Yuma asks her if she wants something as a reward for helping him out, and gets told by Chika that he can always pay her back with his body if it bothers him that much. Curious, Yuma asks if she means physical labor, to which she disagrees, and after getting closer, Chika whispers into his ear, saying that she's talking about the naughty stuff. Yuma gets shocked after hearing this, but gets told by Chika that she's just joking. Moreover, she mentions how beautiful Snow is and asks if Yuma thought she wouldn't notice the tension between the two of them. She then questions if the two of them have done the deed already. Flustered, Yuma tries to act like he doesn't understand what she means, and in the end, she lets go of his arm and begins walking away. When Yuma offers to walk her home, she refuses, saying that it's just a short walk from the station. Once she leaves, Yuma wonders if he was just teased, while Chika, who is on the train, calls Yuma a dense idiot. After returning home, Yuma notices Snow sitting at the table and figures that she has already settled in. He then starts to think about how the two of them are supposed to sleep, as there is only one bed in this house. Just then, Snow falls to the ground, and when Yuma checks up on her to see if she's all right, Snow grabs his face and starts burying his face in her jugs. After having the time of his life enjoying their softness, Yuma realizes that he is not a clueless virgin anymore and gets up, asking Snow about what happened. With a pretty tempting look on her face, she calls his name, causing Yuma to lose control over himself and take her to the bedroom. Afterward, he bows in front of Snow, apologizing for what he did. However, she asks him to lift his head, as she also lost herself for a moment. Yuma then wonders what led to this happening, and Snow mentions that it could be related to increasing his magic power in the dungeon. She further elaborates by saying that between a spirit and their summoner, there's a strong bond formed through magic, which can grow stronger or weaker depending on emotions. The deeper the bond, the more their magic power will grow as well. Moreover, she believes that deepening their connection is basically flirting, especially when the two of them stick this close to each other. Hearing this, Yuma realizes that their time together did feel like something couples do. However, he still can't understand why it happened, and Snow figures that coffee might be the trigger. According to her, after drinking this, she started finding him pretty adorable and figures that it must have been designed to make spirits and their master grow closer to each other. Nonetheless, she tells him not to worry about it, as what happened was an accident. This makes Yuma realize that it's like people doing this kind of stuff when they're drunk, but for Snow, the trigger is coffee. For the time being, he decides to make sure the house never runs out of coffee. The following day, Yanagita calls Yuma, informing him that he has prepared a house for him and has also registered it under his name. Furthermore, he informs him that regarding hiring Yuma at the company, it is going to be reconsidered, which Yuma doesn't seem to mind. Curious, Yanagita questions what he means by that and gets told by Yuma that he has started his own company. But at the same time, he wishes to stay on good terms with the Dungeon Management Bureau. Yanagita replies by saying that this is exactly the kind of deal they were hoping for and mentions that providing a residence alone doesn't quite cut it when he is being offered that kind of magical core. This is why Yanagita wishes to pay the difference, but Yuma interrupts him by saying that there is a different kind of favor he wants to ask. What he wants is for Yanagita to acquire Snow's family registry, which Yanagita understands as necessary for entering a dungeon or establishing a company. Moreover, Yanagita talks about the small dungeons that were discovered recently, but its entrance was completely frozen and wonders if it was their doing. Yuma agrees, saying that it was them, which Yanagita finds unbelievable and mentions how it wouldn't be wise to make enemies of him. Once he is done with the call, Snow appears, asking him about it. Yuma informs him that they got a new place to live, but he turned down their job offer. Snow is glad to hear that and comments on how everything seems to be working out smoothly. Meanwhile, Yanagita thinks about Yuma starting his own company and regrets not bringing them to the bureau from the start. Nonetheless, he plans to dispatch someone from his side, as they will need young talent with the know-how to run a business. Meanwhile, the two of them visit their new house for the first time, surprised to see how big it is. This makes Snow realize just how valuable magical cores are and remembers that they are said to be a source of energy. For now, Yuma decides to share the location of their new house with Chika, while on the other hand, Snow gets tired of waiting and starts getting fidgety. Seeing this, Yuma suggests exploring the house, which brings a smile to her face, and she starts running towards the house, mocking Yuma for being so childish. Soon after, Yuma also enters the house, glad that Snow seems happy when he notices a hot babe rocking those G-cups standing inside the house. Curious, he questions who she is, and after confirming that he is Yuma, she nervously lets Yuma know that the two of them will be working for a long time. Afterward, that girl introduces herself as Ayano, a 23-year-old who was sent by the Dungeon Management Bureau. Yuma also makes sure to introduce himself and gets told by Ayano not to be so formal and just call her employee or something. Ultimately, Yuma figures that Yanagita must have sent her, to which Ayano agrees, saying that she used to work in the accounting department, so she has some knowledge there and has also majored in law. Yuma is impressed by her qualifications and would like her to work for them, but before that, he asks Ayano if she's not spying on them or anything. Hearing this, Ayano freaks out and reassures Yuma that he's mistaken, begging him not to eliminate her. Yuma reassures her that no one will be taking her life and wonders just what Yanagita told her about him. Following that, he realizes that he hasn't offered her anything and decides to prepare some tea. Ayano stands up in a panic, telling Yuma that it's no problem, when accidentally she trips and falls right on top of him. Yuma, who is on the floor, feels something pretty soft and huge covering his face, and when Ayano tries standing up, she falls on top of him once again. Yuma is fully aware that at this rate, this could count as him taking advantage of her, and yet he can't fight this feeling, as it's not every day that he gets to have such huge milkers on his face. Just then, Snow opens the door in excitement, asking Yuma if he's here and talks about how the study room has a good atmosphere. She is about to add some other stuff, but stops after seeing what's taking place in front of her. Yuma can see her getting furious at them and tries telling her that it's a misunderstanding. However, she doesn't listen to a word he says and screams at them at the top of her lungs. Later, Snow understands everything after Yuma explains it to her, and she tells Ayano that if the Gunnar Lord tries doing anything freaky, Ayano should tell her immediately so she can freeze his crotch for good. Once that's settled, Ayano informs them that Snow's family registry has been taken care of, and now they are free to enter dungeons. Concerned, Yuma asks about where Ayano's salary will be coming from and gets informed that the Dungeon Management Bureau is responsible for it. Hearing this, Yuma figures that it wouldn't be a good idea to investigate her further and decides to pay her salary as well, allowing Ayano to accept whatever the Bureau pays her as well. When Ayano tries to argue, Yuma calls it a token of his gratitude. Afterward, Ayano asks what she should do now, and Yuma lets her know that since they haven't established themselves yet, there is no work to do, but she can prepare the paperwork till then. While she begins working on the documents, Yuma realizes that Ayano will be handling these sorts of tasks. Chika will be handling the online stuff. Snow will be their top earner, and just like before, he is going to be a useless idiot. Just then, he receives a text from Chika, letting him know that she has arrived. As soon as she enters the house, Chika begins staring at Ayano quite intensely and mentions how she not only has great looks but also an insane figure. When Yuma asks what is up, she lets him know that they will need to use Ayano as well. At the start, Snow can appear in the videos, but even if she is a beauty, people might start to get bored with her. At that time, everything is going to be solved once they introduce Ayano. After giving it some more thought, Yuma realizes that both these girls are incredibly gorgeous. Snow has that elegant, untouchable vibe that makes one think that she's out of their league. On the other hand, Ayano is cute in a way that makes people want to talk to her. In the end, he understands that they will add Ayano to the videos to attract an audience that Snow won't be able to reach. This whole conversation gives Yuma an idea, and he asks Chika to appear in the videos as well. When she asks the reason behind his decision, Yuma lets her know that if they are choosing girls based on their looks, Chika is a pretty great choice. Hearing this comes from Yuma brings a smile to her face, and she agrees to do it if he wants it done. The following day, Yuma talks to Ayano about how easy it is to start a company, and figures that it's probably because the Dungeon Management Bureau laid the groundwork for them. As the two of them are about to get on the train, Ayano notices that it's pretty crowded and starts to panic. This makes Yuma wonder if she's not good with crowds, but Ayano reassures him that she will be fine. Once they board the train, Yuma makes sure to stand in front of Ayano to protect her from the crowd. She thanks him by calling him boss, but gets told by Yuma not to call him that, as just Yuma is fine. She agrees and asks Yuma to call her Ayano as well. Suddenly, the train shakes, causing Yuma to get a bit too close for comfort to Ayano. Flustered, Yuma reassures her that it wasn't on purpose. However, even after apologizing, he is unable to move away due to the crowd behind him. In his mind, Yuma thinks about how it's not like he's trying to purposefully connect their chests, but he doesn't have any other choice. Afterward, he notices Ayano putting her hand on him, making him think if he is hurting her somehow. However, once she looks up, Yuma sees the embarrassed look on her face, making him a bit turned on. Nonetheless, Yuma eventually looks away, thinking about how it's wrong to look at a struggling person with such lustful eyes. Just then, he notices an old lecher trying to get a creep shot of Ayano, and he instantly grabs his arm. The geezer freaks out and questions what Yuma is doing, and gets told by Yuma to get off at the next stop. After getting out of the train, Ayano apologizes to Yuma for getting him caught up in such a mess, but Yuma tells her not to worry, as it was that guy's fault. Hearing this, Ayano begins to tear up, prompting Yuma to pat her head without thinking much. After realizing what he just did, Yuma instantly apologizes for doing that, but to his surprise, Ayano lets him know that she didn't hate it. Confused, he wonders if she's not feeling well, to which Ayano disagrees, telling Yuma that it's quite the opposite, as it felt quite nice. In the end, Ayano is unable to handle the situation any longer and runs away, letting him know that she has to use the restroom. After returning home, Yuma sees Snow's lifeless body lying on the couch, while Chika notices Ayano hiding behind Yuma. Curious, she asks if something happened, and with a face redder than a tomato, she reassures Chika that nothing happened. Meanwhile, Yuma begins poking Snow, asking Chika what is up with her. She lets him know that they just finished filming for the video and questions if they want to see. Hearing this, Snow instantly gets up and refuses to let them watch it. Although she doesn't mind Ayano watching it, Snow can't let Yuma watch it for some reason. This makes Chika remind her that the video will be released to the public anyway, and how excited she was for it. Frustrated, Snow blames Chika for hyping her up while Yuma wonders if it's because Snow is doing something embarrassing in the video, like making a teaser for her OnlyFans. Believing that this might be it, he tells Chika not to release something that might get them banned, which makes her smirk and mock Yuma for always having his mind in the gutter. Nonetheless, she plays the video for them to watch, and it starts off by Snow introducing herself and telling everyone that she has conquered a dungeon. Furthermore, she shows her abilities, which makes Yuma wonder if it's okay to share all this information. Chika lets him know that it's fine because it would seem she's lying if she just told everyone about conquering a dungeon without any proof. Afterward, music starts playing in the video, followed by Snow dancing and moving her hips to the beat. Once the video ends, Yuma gives Chika a high five, promising to give her a bonus because of how great the video turned out to be. When Snow argues that they don't need to use it, Yuma mentions that it's very important and requests to see it one more time. He then asks how Chika managed to get the footage of her smiling like that because it turned out surprisingly well. Ultimately, Snow gets enough of their reaction and starts bawling. On the other hand, Yuma thinks about how the editing technique and the subtitles are really good and compliments Chika for being really versatile. With a smile on her face, she tells Yuma that she can handle anything he throws at her. Following that, the girls enjoy themselves by having some snacks while Yuma gets a call from Yanagita, who inquires about the business. Yuma thanks him for sending Ayano, as she seems to be very capable. Afterward, Yanagita informs Yuma that the president, Mina, wishes to meet him again and asks if he's okay with it. Yuma agrees, telling him that he actually wanted to meet her as well and wonders what time works for her. Yuma gets informed that Mina is actually headed off to a dungeon, and he will call him once she returns. Once he's done with the call, Yuma returns to where the girls are and witnesses a drunk version of Ayano, inviting him to drink with them as well. Since the other girls are totally wasted as well, Yuma advises her to stop drinking, but she argues that she can still go on for some more. Although Yuma has already popped his cherry, he is still nervous about drinking alone with women. Just then, Ayano comes up to him, asking if he hits the gym, to which he refuses and tries his best to stay calm. Ayano then mentions that he has some pretty impressive muscles and ends up hugging his arm. This makes Yuma realize that, at this point, Ayano is basically asking for it since she's really pressing her jingle bells against him. Furthermore, Ayano tells Yuma that it's just the two of them now and starts getting close to his face.